The land was dying in silence. Fields that once fed families now grew cotton for foreign masters. Taxes stole the roofs over men's heads. Soldiers took sons from their mothers. Then, from the hills of Tanzania, a whisper began to spread of sacred water of unity, of a people chosen to rise. The Germans believed they ruled with guns. They were about to learn what happens when the hungry, the broken, and the forgotten stop being afraid. Welcome to Tales by Sammy, the home of unforgettable stories filled with love, betrayal, mystery, revenge, and powerful life lessons. Every story takes you on an emotional journey that will keep you hooked from beginning to end. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and join the family as we bring you amazing stories that touch the heart and stir the mind. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. The rains had come late that year. Across the villages of southern Tanzania, the earth lay cracked like broken pottery beneath a white-hot sky. Dust moved where water once ran. Women walked farther each morning to fill clay jars. Goats nosed dry grass and found little. Yet even in hunger, the people still knew how to endure drought. What they did not know how to endure was empire. In the village of Nandit, long rows of cotton stood stiff and pale in fields where millet and cassava should have grown. The cotton was not for the people. It was for ships, for ports, for merchants who would never see the faces of those who planted it. German colonial officers came on horseback every few weeks with armed askari soldiers beside them. They inspected the fields, counted rows, barked orders through interpreters, and wrote numbers into ledgers as though numbers were more real than suffering. A missed quota could mean punishment. A late tax could mean seizure. A complaint could mean a beating. Juma bent low in the field, fingers pressing dry soil between his thumb and palm. He was young, strong-shouldered, and silent by nature, but silence had become heavier lately. His father, Maji Maji, once spoke proudly of the land. "This soil knows our footsteps," he would say. "Plant food and it feeds you. Respect it and it remembers you." Now the land remembered whips, boots, and forced cotton. Juma's mother, Asha, rationed every handful of grain carefully. His younger sister Nima no longer laughed as often. His older brother Salim had been taken months before with other men for road labor inland. No word had returned. At dusk, smoke rose thinly from cooking fires because there was little to cook. The villagers gathered outside the elder's hut. Faces glowed orange in firelight, carved with fatigue. "They tax the roof above our heads," muttered one man. "They take men when the planting season begins," said another. "They count cotton while children go hungry," whispered a woman. No one raised their voice. Fear had taught them caution. Then footsteps approached from the dark path. A traveler entered the circle, dust-covered, lean, carrying only a walking staff and water gourd. He asked permission to sit. The elder nodded. Water was passed to him. After drinking, he stared into the flames. "I came from Matumbi Hills," he said. Several people glanced up. "There is a man there who speaks with power." The night grew still. "What kind of power?" asked the elder. "The kind that makes men stand straight again." Juma lifted his eyes. The traveler continued. "He says the strangers rule because we kneel separately." The fire snapped loudly. "He says the spirits of the land are awake." "Who is he?" Juma asked. The traveler met his gaze. Kinjikitalanguel. The name moved through the circle in murmurs. That night Juma lay awake listening to insects sing outside the hut walls. Beside him, he heard his mother crying softly where she thought no one could hear. He stared into darkness until dawn bled through the cracks. Then he rose. "Where are you going?" Asha asked. "To the hills." His father studied him for a long moment. "Go as a son," the old man said quietly. "Return as a man." Juma took a small bundle of dried cassava, a wooden spear, and began walking north with the sunrise. Behind him, the cotton fields waited like pale ghosts. The Matumbi Hills were unlike the dry plains below. Trees clustered thickly along slopes. Streams still whispered through shaded ravines. Birds called overhead. But what truly transformed the hills was not nature. It was people. They came in steady waves, men with hoes still on their shoulders, hunters carrying bows, women with infants tied to their backs, elders leaning on staffs, youths with sharpened spears, chiefs wrapped in cloth, wandering traders, fishermen from rivers Juma had never seen. Some spoke languages he barely understood, yet all wore the same expression: need. The clearing at the center of the gathering pulsed with expectation. Drums sounded from one ridge, answered by another farther away. Fires burned day and night. Food was shared freely. Strangers greeted one another like cousins. Juma had never seen so many people united without fear. Then the crowd parted. Kinjikatile stepped forward. He was not dressed like a king, nor guarded like a chief. He wore simple cloth, beads, and the certainty of a man who needed no throne. His face was calm, his eyes piercing. When he spoke, even restless children fell silent. "You think they're strong because they carry rifles," he said. He pointed to the crowd. "They think they're strong because you carry burdens." Murmurs rose. "They tax one village, and another says it is not my trouble." He pointed again. "They beat one man, and another lowers his eyes." The murmurs became angry voices. "They steal one harvest, and another waits its turn." Now the crowd thundered agreement. Kinjikatile raised a carved bowl filled with water mixed with oil and millet seeds. But rain does not ask which roof it falls upon. He dipped his hand into the bowl and let droplets fall to the earth. When people move together, no fence can hold them. Cries shook the clearing. The sacred mixture was called Maji water. People came forward to be blessed. Spears were touched, foreheads anointed, oaths spoken, tears shed openly. When Juma knelt, cool drops touched his skin. He felt no magic bolt from the sky. He felt something greater. He no longer felt alone. Nearby, a woman whose husband had died under colonial punishment stood straighter than before. A limping elder gripped his staff like a weapon. Young men who had once feared soldiers now spoke boldly of freedom. Messengers were chosen and sent outward. Drums carried coded rhythms through valleys. Smoke signals rose on distant ridges. Chiefs met in secret. Blacksmiths began working by night. Women hid food stores and medicinal herbs. Scouts memorized roads to German stations. The rebellion was already moving before the first spear was thrown. German officers heard rumors. They laughed at first. Peasant superstition, one reportedly said, but then tax collectors stopped returning on time. Cotton fields were neglected. Villagers avoided labor summons. Roads became strangely silent, so the authorities moved quickly. Kinjikatile was seized, imprisoned, and executed. News of his death reached the hills by runner. Many wept. Some screamed. Juma felt the world tilt. Then an old woman near the fire stood and raised both hands. "You fools!" she shouted to the sky as if the Germans could hear. "You killed a man after he had become a river." The next morning, more people arrived than ever before. Kinjikatile was gone. His message was everywhere. The first flames rose before sunrise. A cotton storehouse near Colonial post burned so brightly that villagers miles away saw the glow. Soon after, tax records vanished in another district. Telegraph wires were cut. Bridges were sabotaged. Isolated patrols disappeared into forests and did not return. Southern German East Africa was waking in fire. Juma marched with fighters under a leader called Chiku, an older hunter known for patience and scarred courage. He had fought raiders years earlier and knew how men panicked. "Bravery is useful," Chiku told the young man. "Noise is not." Their first target was a small station with a stockade fence, 2 European officers, Askari guards, and a warehouse of tools and grain. At dawn, rebels circled through brush. Juma's mouth was dry. He gripped his spear so hard his hands ached. "You fear?" Chiku asked. "Yes." "Good. Fear sees danger. Courage decides anyway." Then the signal horn sounded. Hundreds surged forward. Shots cracked from the walls. Smoke burst. Men fell screaming. Others hacked at gates with axes. Arrows darkened the air. Women in the rear carried water, bandages, and stones for slings. Juma climbed through a breach beside 3 others and nearly collided with an Askari soldier reloading his rifle. Instinct moved faster than thought. His spear drove forward. By noon the station had fallen. The German flag was torn down. Grain was distributed. Ledgers burned. For weeks, victories multiplied. Road became unsafe. Colonial authorities shrank to defend its centers. Communities that had obeyed out of fear now hesitated. Some chiefs openly joined. Others secretly sent food and intelligence. Whispers spread. They can bleed, but empire adapts. German columns advanced with disciplined Askari troops, artillery, repeating rifles, and machine guns. They moved methodically, destroying suspected support bases. Villages were burned regardless of guilt. Granaries smashed. Livestock driven away. Fruit trees cut. Anyone accused of aiding rebels might be flogged, hanged, or shot. Juma returned secretly to Nandit. He found ash. The family hut was gone. Fields blackened. Cooking pots shattered. His mother and sister hid near reeds by a riverbed, thin and hollow-eyed. His father was missing. Something inside Juma changed there. Anger became iron. He rejoined the fighters. At another battle, hundreds charged believing Maji would protect them. Some sang as they ran. Others laughed defiantly. The machine guns opened. The front ranks collapsed like cut grass. Juma threw himself behind a log, ears ringing, soil exploding around him. Beside him, Chiku calmly reloaded an old rifle. Why didn't it work? Juma shouted. Chiku did not look at him. It did. Juma stared. It brought them here, Chiku said. Now stand. By 1906, famine stalked a rebellion harder than bullets. Burned fields meant no harvest. Hidden grain ran out. Children cried with swollen bellies. Old people died quietly under trees to spare families the burden of watching. Still, attacks continued where possible. But now every victory cost more than before. By 1907, organized resistance had been broken. Some leaders were dead, others captured. Many survivors simply lacked strength to continue. German stations reopened. Roads were patrolled again. Taxes returned. Cotton demands resumed in places. But the colony had changed. So had the people. Juma wandered through districts once full of laughter and trade. He saw abandoned compounds overtaken by weeds, wells clogged with debris, villages rebuilt smaller than before. At a labor camp, he finally found his father. Mzee Madi was alive but bent, shoulders narrow, eyes older than his years. Neither spoke when they embraced. Words would have been too small. They returned to Nandit and rebuilt with mud walls, poles, and stubborn hands. His mother planted cassava in hidden plots. Nima, now taller and sharper-eyed, carried water with the strength of two people. Years moved forward. Empires argued elsewhere. World War I would later tear old colonial arrangements apart. Flags would change. Administrators would come and go. But memory rooted deeper than flags. Children born after the rebellion asked questions. Were you there? Did bullets become water? Did you see Kinjikatile? Old survivors answered differently. Some with pride, some with tears, some with silence. Juma, now gray-haired and stooped, often sat beneath a tamarind tree at dusk while younger villagers gathered close. One evening a boy asked a question everyone eventually asked. Did the Maji work? Juma smiled. It did not stop bullets. The children looked disappointed. He pointed around them to rebuilt huts, planted fields, laughing girls chasing goats, boys wrestling in dust, women singing while grinding grain. It made people who feared each other fight beside each other. He touched his chest. It made those who believed they were weak discover they were not. He touched the ground, and it taught the strangers that this land would never love chains. Years later, when Tanzania moved toward independence, leaders would remember the uprising not only as defeat, but as the first great cry of unity across many peoples. The fighters of Maji Maji did not live to see freedom fully won, but they helped teach future generations how to imagine it. And sometimes that is where freedom begins. If stories like this interest you, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification.